was it easy making friends there? I think what they meant is also like international student, but also like locals, like to make a friends, like Japanese friend. How was your experience with that?
I'm not gonna say that it was bad. So like a lot of it does depend on who you are as a person. So like I'm very extroverted, so I make friends very easily. It doesn't take a lot of effort for me to make friends just in general, regardless. But I will say in Japan it is a bit harder because people are very like closed off. So it's not like, in the States, like, maybe you can more or less just find someone on the street and, talk them up and have a conversation with them, and you're friends like that. Like, it's not, you can't really do that here, or at least not to the same extent.
Yeah. But don't you feel safer to do that though? Like, I don't know. I wouldn't go talk. I'm not really friendly like you, Ria-san. So I think I can't make friends on the street. I can't do that type of person.
I mean, yeah, because like, I don't really do that also either. I think it's just like in the context of university, it was harder to make friends at my school because it's not necessarily that people are cliquish. It's just people like at the school were not very interested in making friends with the exchange students that were there. They just weren't. So, it's like, I sat next to this one girl in my class, like, every day for a whole semester. And, it was just, and she never said a word to me. Even though, I was be like, oh, hi, how are you? And stuff like that. Like, just be friendly. And she was just kind of like, okay. Yeah, and then so it's not even necessarily that they're rude. I think just it's kind of closed off, and I think like the Japanese friends that friends and like friend groups here are like very like separate. Like you don't really mix friends. Like maybe you have friends in one place, you have friends in one place, which I mean I do that too, but it's like to a greater extent. So I mean, it depends on who it is that you are as to how good it is that you make friends. Most of my friends that I made. Most of my Japanese friends that I made, like locals, I actually made outside of school, and I actually was very friendly with a lot of my neighbors.
How did you meet? Like, how did you get close to locals?
Like, well, at least with my neighbors, I would just, I would see them out in the morning, and every morning I would just say good morning. And, eventually they're like, oh, you're a nice foreign person. Okay, so we can, like, essentially is what it is.
Eventually.
Yeah, it did help actually at the school that I went to because Japanese culture is very big on status, I guess. So, because I went to a good school, like, they found out I went to a good school, they're like, oh, okay. So, they're like, you're a good person, like, you're a good person that I want to associate with, because you go to such a good school. My neighbors were, it's not that they weren't friendly, it was just like, they were just like, oh, hi, good morning, and then that was sort of it. And then they just happened to see me wear my Sophia t-shirt, and they were like, wait, you go there? And I was like, yeah. And then that's when they were like very like, yes, I see. And I was like, oh, okay. So the Japanese friends, but I mean, outside of school, I didn't actually make a lot of friends inside school. And I hate to say it, I made it while I was at the club or when I was drinking, because that's one of like the big main places. Like, if you're out, everybody like, you go to the club or you go out to a bar, everyone's friendly. So it's like, you make friends, with people while you're out dancing, or even like, girls' bathroom, and you exchange Instagram, and then it's like, hey, you want to hang out next week? And they're like, yeah. And then so it's kind of like that.
Yeah,
so
interesting.
It does depend on like what kind of person you're. Like if you're someone that's really outgoing, of course, like me, it's a lot easier. If you're introverted, it's difficult, but it's not something that you can't do. One of the best ways to strike up a conversation with a Japanese person is it's summertime and maybe y'all are stuck in an elevator or something together, and you'd say, atsui desu ne, and they was like, atsui, and then you just start talking about how hot it is, and then
people in Japan like to talk about weather. Yes.
Exactly. So, like, that's, like, it's just, like, a very good common topic, and then everyone's like, oh, well, where are you from? Where do you, you live around here and stuff like that, and then that's, like, a really good thing to pick that up if you want to, like, befriend your neighbors. So, that, Atsui desu ne, it's has never failed me.
Yeah,
before.
I gotta tell my students, you guys gotta study the weather. I'm telling you guys so many times.
Exactly. Japanese people love talking about the weather, which honestly I love talking about the weather too. So I'm like, okay, perfect. Like,
yeah, and I think something to do with like how Japanese people are a little bit shy in a sense too. You know, some people are really outgoing, like you said. I think it depends on the person, but in generally speaking, I think people are really really shy. So it's hard to crack those like the shell that they have. So. I'm surprised to see so many people are on Clubhouse, like talking, like actually trying to practice it, trying to reach out. I think people are starting to change, or they know that they need to change it, so maybe it's easier for them to try it out.
Yeah, I think also like apps are a really good resource for that. So like even there's some Japanese people that I just happened to meet on Twitter. And then it's like, whenever I finally came back to Japan, like, we go and we hang out at Foodie Cafe or something like that. So, and the internet, while it can be a mess, it can also be a beautiful place for you to, make friends.
Right.
And it also really helped me with Japanese studying for whenever we get to that section.
Nice. Other questions similar to that says, like, are the locals nice to you, or do they not like Americans? High school students questions like that, it's is it nice to you foreigners? Like I don't know. What do you think about this question?
I mean, I guess so. I think it's like, obviously they don't like people who are just loud and ridiculous for no reason.
Anywhere.
Like, and that's true of anybody.
Right.
So, I think a lot of the things, like, and a lot of it is cultural differences. So, for me personally, I'm somebody that's very loud when I talk. I yell when I talk. When I get very excited, I start yelling. And my friends always have to tell me to calm down. And whenever I'm in a public place, like, people always look at me, they're like, oh, American is yelling right now. So, like, that's sort of like a thing. But, like, are they nice to you? I mean, I guess so. Like, it really depends on who it is. To be honest, like, like I said, like, you can't really say, like, generally, are they nice or are they not nice?
Right. Anywhere in the world.
Yeah, and that's true of anywhere. Even if you go to, like, the countryside, because, like, back in December, I went skiing. And I went to Nagano. And I went to this sort of small little town that was probably about 45 minutes by train away from there, because I did really bad at skiing, and I was like, I'm not doing this today. I'm gonna go hang out somewhere else. And then so actually, I was walking around in that town, and I guess it was really small, and I had people always looking at me because they were like, oh, it's a foreign person all the way out here. Also, it's a black person, and they were like, oh, okay. And then I don't think anyone said anything bad to me. At least not that I could hear it, but I was on the phone. I went into this coffee shop, and I made friends with two old ladies who were just sitting in the coffee shop because they were just so interested to hear about my life, and we were just talking and stuff like that, and they were the sweetest women I'd ever met, and really made my day. So even in a small place like this, it really just depends who it is, who it isn't.
Right.
Do they not like Americans? Actually, no. I think Japanese people love Americans, which is something that was very interesting. Like, if you've never been overseas, being American has clout in a lot of places. So, like, I meet somebody, like, they ask where I'm from. They say, oh, I say, oh, America. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. America is so cool, blah, 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 blah. So, we like Americans, at least in Tokyo. Maybe in some places they probably don't, for probably, like, certain political reasons, which I don't think they're wrong about. So, like, in Okinawa or something like that, because, people on base just act crazy. So I'm like, okay, I understand why you don't, like, why that's the case. But, I mean, do they not like Americans? Like, not really. So, say generally, like, Japanese people actually really like them, for the most part.
And even in the Okinawa, I brought my students a couple years ago for study abroad for 2 weeks, and 1 week we spent time in Okinawa. And like, I think it's a military base in Okinawa are a lot of political issues that which I don't want to get to at all, but I'm sure there are people really really nice too, and people who are acting out anywhere in the world, that might give the negative idea of that group of people, and it's just really unfortunate that a lot of people might instantly feel like negative impression from the certain part people in a group, and it's like you mentioned, like it depends on the person, like there are so many so it's like really unfortunate, we always relate something with the negative impressions and why we do that, but it's like so sad, but it's so true, like we all can work on it, but definitely like it's exactly what we need to work on ourselves, and I wish more people will think about what their action caused to the some extent of how other people look at any groups that you might be categorized, like you're not categorizing yourself, but you might be categorized by other people, how they look at you. So I wish more people are aware of that, so that no one will be judged by any category that they might be put in.
Yeah, for sure. And, and I will say, because, like, Japan is a very homogeneous country. Like, that's, like, Japan is 98%, like, foreign people in Japan only make up 2% of the population. Like, and just non-Japanese people make up only 2% of the population. So, you're going to meet a lot of people who are probably really ignorant about a lot of things. And, I'm not going to sugarcoat and say that, this is, like, the best place for foreigners, because it's not. Foreigner treatment and discrimination is a very big issue in this country, and everyone knows it, and it's like not best to just not even try to acknowledge it, because it's true. But it's like how it is that you're going to be treated by local people, it really just depends on them, and it also depends on you. So if you're just out here being ridiculous all willy-nilly, people probably might not like you.
Right.
So, and that, and some of it does not necessarily mean because you are a foreigner. It's because you're just kind of doing a lot for no reason. Like even in the U.S., you say you're doing a lot right now. Like it's sort of the same thing.
Right.
Depends on who it is. I'm not going to say that discrimination doesn't exist in the country, because it does, and it's something that's very very nuanced that takes way too long to explain.
Right.
So I think I would probably just stop there, because that's as far as I can get before I start trying to go into a rabbit hole on.
Okay. Maybe other topic, and then we can, maybe other day that we can discuss ourselves. That'd be good. Okay. Season. So let's go back to season a little bit. So how's the weather in Japan? Have you seen cherry blossom trees? Are they as pretty as they on TV? What about the summer festivals? Have you been any? Is the summer really humid?
Everyone does Hanami every year, so they can't go to Japan without doing Hanami. So, very quintessential, and they're really pretty. They're very nice. Pre-corona, Hanami is. I love Hanami season, but I also hate Hanami season, because it's like a fight trying to get to a spot in the park, trying to get under a nice tree, or to take pictures of trees without having 11 people in your way.
Right.
But, the cherry blossoms are very pretty, and it's just one of those things, like because it's Japan, like you have to do.
Right.
And I have friends who lived here for years, like who are from other countries, and everyone's like, oh, what are we doing for Hanami this year? Like it's just a thing.
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting they have like weather forecasts, that Hanami forecasts that people will look at, and then there are certain times that you gotta go to see like the best of the cherry blossom,
Yeah, for sure, because different parts in Japan start at different times. And, then there's early Hanami season, peak Hanami season, and then, like, post-Hanami season. So, like, they do have Hanami forecasts, so it's like, Hanami's going to start here in Hokkaido. Like, it always starts, it starts in Hokkaido later. It's like later, the more northern you are, the later it starts.
It's cold, Yeah,
it's cold. And so, but if you're, like, in Kyushu or something, it starts really early. Here in Japan, I think Hanami season starts, like, it's from, like, March 10 to For about 2 weeks. So the cherry blossoms are only there for 2 weeks, so that's why people flock into parks and stuff every day for those 2 weeks. Because it's the only time you're gonna see them. But no, they're actually really pretty. There's actually some right in front of my apartment building, like some cherry blossom trees, and it was the most beautiful thing whenever I first got here, because the petals were like flowing in the wind. But yeah, they are as pretty as they are on TV. How was the weather? Weather is pretty nice. I'm from Middle Tennessee, near the Nashville area, and the weather there and the weather here are very similar. I know y'all are on the West Coast, so warm for the most part, but it does get cold. It's hot and cold. And something you'll probably hear a lot from people is like, oh, Japan has 4 seasons, and it's like, okay, it's like a thing. That's like a saying thing that people say a lot. Again, it also depends on where you live. So maybe if you live in like Kansai area or like Kyushu or something, or Okinawa, it's gonna be really warm for a long time. If you live in like northern Japan or up in like Hokkaido, or even if you live up in like Ibaraki or something like that, it's a lot colder. In general, everywhere has spring, summer, fall, winter. I think weather here it's pretty nice. Recently, summers have gotten hotter and hotter. This winter actually was not that cold as it was back in 2017, which is really the winter time, at least in Tokyo, is kind of weird. But there was an entire snow front that went through all of West Japan. So Tokyo is in East Japan, and then so we missed most of the snow. But there was tons and tons and tons of snow on the western part of Japan, and they had inches built up of snow. So, and those were places that were not very used to having that much snow in a short period of time. So it depends on where you live, but generally I think it's okay. Winter or summer festivals, yes, I have been. They're so fun, and I went with one of my friends that I had met in university, my home university, because she lives in her family lives in Tochigi. So I got to eat lots of food, and got to sit there and watch the shrine or whatever through the street, and then the drums, and it was just.
Did you wear yukata while you were at the festival?
Yes, I did. So actually, her mom made me one, and she's so sweet. She actually made one. I was like, girl, and it was the sweetest thing I had ever gotten. So I wore one. So people here are fine with foreigners wearing them. As long as you just wear it respectfully and in the right sort of occasion, then it's fine. And then so I don't really wear it a whole like that, or I don't wear it every day or something like that. It's just for one occasion. So yeah.
I'm so envy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love those festival foods. They're so good. I can't wait to visit soon.
So good. It's something everybody has to experience, I think.
Yeah, people have to go probably search the date wherever they're planning to visit. When is those festivals are holding at, Hanabi Taikai and all that, so they can really fully experience that, Yeah.
Festivals. Summer festivals are definitely the highlight of summertime here, so. And, Tokyo has them, but, Tokyo has them, and they're also very fun. But, it was really nice to go to, a really, small sort of town in, the countryside and go to theirs because, everyone, because it's small, everyone knew everyone, and they were like, oh, who is this? Who's your friend? And stuff like that. So, people were very nice.
Yeah.